Welcome back to another exciting Rebel's Edge, where America is still number one. And we've got the State of the Union tonight to prove it. Pete and I are going to cover some stocks. Of course, a lot more U.S. men's hockey and even a little women's hockey, both gold medal winners, as well as Pete and Jon, gold medal winners, here on the Rebel's Edge. Boom.
The gold medal men's.
That is so great.
Austin Matthews is a winner.
Got to be one of the greatest. You know, being here in Minnesota, Jon, we get the advantage of all the people. Everybody's talking about this. You gotta love it.
How great is that?
That is
Those
awesome.
guys. And Pete, I don't know if Jack Hughes is ever going to have to buy a drink again.
He definitely is not.
or Helichek. You think
yeah.
either one of them ever have to buy a drink again?
That Helichek is a stud, man. That was as good as it gets. 41 shots, only let in one. That's not so bad.
42.
Was it 42? Oh, well,
41
not so
saves.
bad.
Not so bad. Yeah. It's pretty good average. Well, and remember, Canada, if you guys would have agreed to be the 51st state, you'd be walking around with a gold medal today. See how Pete and I did that math?
It's great.
All right. Well, Pete, let's dive into a little macro. Rebound in software stocks. We're seeing a little bit of a rebound from yesterday's sell-off. And as Pete and I said yesterday, folks, the tariff tantrum was pretty much 20% in the market. So a 1.25% sell-off, if that scares you out of the market, you shouldn't be in the market. You should be all in treasuries, folks, because if a 1% drop scares you out, you don't deserve the outperformance of staying in.
Yeah. And since people always use the Dow, Jon, and it's sitting there at 50,000, just remember, it's at 50,000, 49,000 this day, 50,000, I mean, whatever. But the reality is kind of the math makes it a little bit more sense that it wasn't the worst panic we've seen. We've seen a lot worse than that, Jon.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this as far as the macro, though. And I know we're going to hit this as our first stock as well, but this deal between AMD and Meta, or I should say Meta and AMD, is really a kind of an unbelievable sort of, given the backdrop of everything we've got. And then Meta comes out and says, yeah, well, you guys can keep on screwing around with what you're screwing around with, but we like what's going on here and we want to get even bigger. So they've already got deals with NVIDIA. Now they've got a pretty amazing deal with AMD. I would say that shows that there's not a lot of fear, at least right now, coming out of Meta.
Yep, I would agree with that. And we would be wise to keep our eye on any of the memory makers, Pete, any of the chip companies that are part and parcel of AI, which is Microsoft. They need them. Google, they need them. Apple, they need them, even though they make some of their own. I mean, this isn't going away, folks. Oracle, I think Oracle, Pete, is perhaps one of the most undervalued stocks on the board right now. Mm-hmm. Seriously. But we'll talk about that one another day. Let's talk about the VIX for this segment, Pete.
Yeah, Jon, yesterday was interesting for sure, but then you look into today and you see the markets, you see how they're reacting and all, and lo and behold, we pulled back underneath 20. But even though we were up above 20, I'm okay with that. The 21, 22, sure. Markets were getting sold off. 1% moves, well, whoop-de-doo. But nonetheless, that's where we were, and that's where the volatility did get up there towards 22, or did hit 22. Here we are now, just about 5% lower than that, Jon. So interesting to see where it's going. And I'm not surprised if it did go back up and test some of the levels to the upside, but it will take some pretty interesting moves from the market over today and tomorrow and the next day to see that happen. And of course, one thing that could be a little bit shaky for the markets could be the NVIDIA earnings, which come tomorrow.
Yep. Wednesday is the key day as far as that goes, folks. All right, Pete, let's talk about prediction markets and maybe a little insider trading. And the reason I'll say that is that there was a proposal put out onto the prediction markets that the U.S. would seize an Iranian-linked oil tanker by the end of February. That's a yes or no, obviously a binary outcome. Are they going to do it or are they not? Well, today, Pete, the U.S. military boarded and seized or captured a sanctioned oil tanker. Now, my question to you is, do you think that maybe some of the men and women who were involved in that maybe made a little bet on Polymarket?
It's always a possibility. They'd be smart if they did. Yeah.
There have been similar sorts of things, and keep in mind, this is not a securities market, folks. So there's not really any such thing as insider trading. But there might be people who have a pretty good idea of, let me see, anybody want to pull up Polymarket and see what the odds are? All right. Well, Pete, let's take a look at the Kelsey brothers. Almost
Kelsey
as
brothers are
handsome
going
as us.
viral, all because of the way they treated this Olympic athlete. And the exchange was so strong that it didn't just affect her. It affected her close family as well. Layla Edwards is a women's hockey player from Cleveland Heights, Ohio. She plays at the University of Wisconsin, and she's also on the national women's team. Travis Kelsey plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's in a relationship with Taylor Swift. His brother Jason is retired from the NFL. This year, during the Winter Games, Layla became the first Black woman hockey player to compete in the Olympics. Her mother, her father, and her 91-year-old grandmother wanted to travel to Milan to support her in person, but the trip was just too expensive. So they decided to cheer her on from their home in Cleveland. Someone decided to start a GoFundMe to raise money to get them to Milan, and they end up raising over $60,000.
Gosh, that's amazing.
And the biggest donation came from Travis and Jason Kelsey of $10,000. Travis and Jason are also from Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and they wanted to support one of their own. So Layla's mother, her father, got to travel to Italy, cheer her on in person, and watch her become the first Black woman hockey player to receive a gold medal. Her family was so thankful and full of gratitude, and that was such a big moment for them. I think this is an incredible story. Shout out to Layla. Congratulations. Shout out to her family. I'm so glad that they got to see this in person. Shout out to Jason and Travis as well for their generosity, and to everyone else who donated.
Yep.
This was a real dope story to me. The Kelsey
That's a fabulous story.
It is.
And, you know, I think we both have the same suspicion, Pete, that those Kelsey brothers did it more out of love for a fellow Cleveland Heights person than for getting any accolades out of it. But do I mind them getting accolades for it? Hell no.
No.
I want more people to be generous like they were generous in this regard.
Yep.
And what a great story. And Layla and the women's team, we didn't get to cover it as much yesterday, Pete, as we covered the men's hockey, but just a lot of love for those ladies too. And they did a fabulous job.
Yep.
And another great gold medal performance by a U.S. hockey team.
Pretty awesome.
All right. Pete, let's dive into the one you were talking about, a little AMD.
Sure.
So they do this deal with Meta, multi-year deal for the semiconductor company. Partnership entails deploying 6 gigawatts of AMD's graphic processing units for artificial intelligence data centers. 6 gigawatts, Pete. I mean, you know, I could make all kinds of Back to the Future references, but this is a big, big deal. And I think we're all really looking forward to exactly what this means, especially since they just announced a deal with NVIDIA just days before this.
Yeah. That is amazing, right? I mean, the fact that they've already gotten a deal in place and Meta is saying, you know what? And he was the leader. If we think back, John, in time, Meta suddenly he decides he's going to start spending money hand over fist, right? Well, it turns out to have been probably at that time, especially, the right decision. And so here he is again, and he's trying to get a little bit more. And this AI data that's there, he's focused, and that's what he's been watching and looking at for a while. And he's looking at this deal. And like you said, this is a multi-year deal, this partnership that he's got now with AMD as well. Stock's up pretty nicely this morning, 7% or thereabouts, maybe even a little bit better than that. I think that he is absolutely committed to this, John, and has been committed to a lot more of the CapEx than a lot of folks would have liked. But it seems like that's the only thing that's held back this market a little bit, has been the nervousness that folks have about the CapEx that's going on out there across just about everywhere, it seems. But when they're crushing it on the earnings and they've got all this free cash flow and everything else, John, yes, they're using chunks of that, but I think that they're looking out into the future, and maybe a lot of investors are not looking out as far.
Yeah. Well, here's a group that's looking out there far, Pete. VIR. And why? Because they do a deal with Astellas Pharmaceuticals, much bigger company. And how many times, folks, have you heard Pete say, and when I defer to Pete on this, well, he was the pre-med, so he knows a lot more about biopharma than I ever will. And he always talks about the burn rate and getting something through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, maybe getting fast tracked, all that kind of stuff. Well, if you get $345 million into your coffers for basically a prostate cancer treatment, that's a pretty big deal. Now, it's going to be up to $1.37 billion if they hit various milestones. But this is a fantastic deal for VIR Biotechnology and probably for Astellas as well, Pete. What do you think?
Yeah, I like what's going on here, John. I think that it's smart. Obviously, Astellas did all the work that they needed to dig into this whole thing to see exactly where they were. I mean, when you look at some of these numbers, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, I was looking, John, they average about 1.8 million shares in volume per day. Well, last I looked, it was well over 25 million, and I'm sure it's much higher now than it was, just because that has been the flow of the day. Shorts, yeah, there's a short interest here, gives it a little bit of a squeeze. Last I looked, it was up, somewhere close to 30%, and I think it had, in the pre-market, it was even higher, John. I think it hit over 12. So I think the commercialization side of it that Astellas brings and the cost, they're going to flip up to 60% of the costs. This seems to me like a pretty dang good relationship that they've got and partnership that they've got. And I think this is a name that we need to keep track of for sure.
Well, picture needs to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame today, because this might be one of the greatest saves in the history of the sport. And if there's one guy who deserves a whole
what do we got? One of these in every.
Connor Hellebuyck. Canada had 42 shots on goal, and he only let one in. 41 times he saved Team USA, and this one, by far the best one, because without that save, without a doubt, Canada wins. And there's no overtime golden goal for Jack Hughes. This man gave every ounce of his energy, focus, and grit into this game. Canada may have controlled the puck, but he controlled the game.
Close.
100% MVP and an American hero.
Yep. Boy,
Awesome.
Helichek, Pete, man, people will not forget that game for decades.
Yep.
And whatever else he does in his career, and hopefully his career just goes straight up from here. But we were lucky to have him in the nets. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pete, as far as hymns, this is, of course, a treatment for hair, which I don't have any of,
Me neither.
or various ED remedies, everything from minoxidil for your head to I suppose Cialis and Viagra and all that stuff. Hims is Hims and Hers, by the way, they call it now. It was down 52% year to date on the lows today. It made a nice comeback because right now it's only down 2%, Pete, but it was down as much as 14% in the pre. But look at that slide. That's just this year, 52%. And that thing looks like, a half pipe or something like that going down. That's just, from upper left to lower right, down.
Yeah. It's getting pounded again today. Not quite as bad as you said as it was, but nonetheless, I mean, when you look at it and you beat on your earnings, that's great. That's fantastic. If you miss on your revenue, that can be a little bit of an issue. But the one thing you can't do is get your outlook out there and disappoint people. And that's exactly what happened here again, John. We bring it up all the time. But in this case, they were looking for $650 million as far as the revenue. Well, 600 to 6.25 is where they put it out there. So that's a long ways away. Unfortunately, disappointed folks. And then, of course, the palms are out. They've got to figure out a way to get themselves back in gear, John, because like you said, this has been going on for the last year, and year to date, this thing looks pretty awful. So we've just got to figure out when is the right timing. And I suppose being unusual options guys, we'd like to see something come in there to maybe say, you know what, this is ready to turn. But we haven't seen that yet. And unfortunately for hims and hers, we're probably going to be sitting on the sidelines for a little while longer until they actually can turn that corner.
Yeah, it's, they do GLP-1 drugs too, Pete, like Ozempic and Wegovy, and they mix them, they compound them. And some of that has come back to bite them. Some of it helped drive the stock into the 50s last year, but now, on a rebound today from the lows, it's 15. Ouch. All right, we got another one here of McKinnon.
How close was this? They call that the pipe. The guy hit the pipe, man.
Wide open. Wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times is that poor guy reliving that, Pete? Where he's got the puck, the goalie's on the other side, he can't get back in time. He might flail with his stick to try to get it over there, but he just hits the pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake. Well, thank goodness that he hit the pipe.
Yep.
All right. Let's look at Keysight, Pete. Keys. So this one, it absolutely explodes through the 52-week high and through the 52-week high like a hot knife through butter, Pete. Look at that.
God, it's over 300 now.
Yeah. I mean, look at where it closed last night. It was, right in the 240 kind of range and just explodes to the upside, blows through the old highs into a new all-time high. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, they did everything that you want to do and need to do if you want to get impressive for the folks that are looking out at it. And John, this is a company that's got an incredible, when you look at the free cash flow, fantastic. $1.25 billion. That's great. They beat on the bottom. They beat on the top. They're seeing acceleration, by the way, and we don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but, that's been out there for a while. They're seeing acceleration in AI. They're seeing acceleration in aerospace. They're seeing some as well on the defense side. So it's kind of like a trifecta. They're everywhere that they seem to be doing pretty well. And that's something when the momentum is on your side, you got to take advantage of it. That's exactly what they're doing. They talked about acceleration of the revenue that they've got. And oh, by the way, Morgan Stanley came out and they said, oh yeah, well, we had 227 as our target. We're going to put it to 268. They might have to rethink this thing, John, because it's up there over 300 right now. JP Morgan, they actually did get the price target up to 300. So JP Morgan looks a little bit more accurate right now than Morgan Stanley, but things like that happen all the time. And this is one day, and obviously this will take the next quarter. We'll see how things are going, if they're going in the right direction. But certainly what they put out there in terms of what the outlook looks like, I would say that they have pretty much hit every single spot that you need to get a move like this. And that's why it's up as much as it is today.
Nice. Well, believe it or not, even though we've been showing you guys sports all morning, we do have another video to lead into sports with one of Pete's favorite broadcasters, who used to just be a voice, and now he's on camera. So let's take a look and listen to this, Pete.
This has to be one of the most unbelievable things in sports history. What if I told you that
He's
Jack
got an interesting voice,
Hughes was
doesn't he?
46 years in the making?
What if I told you that Jack Hughes was cut from Team USA?
This
What?
is fucking insane. Now, Team USA wins gold on the 46th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice.
It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Everyone knows the movie Miracle.
Oh, he is.
Do you know Miracle?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what happens in the
Who doesn't know
first
Miracle?
minute of Miracle?
Something absolutely fucking crazy.
Nothing to see here, just the boys practicing.
Just the boys out there getting ready for the Olympics.
Unbelievable movie.
Best movie of all time.
Now, right there, can you tell me the name that was just cut?
Did that say Jack Hughes?
Can you tell me the name on the tape
you
of the
tell me the
locker
name?
being ripped off?
Jack Hughes.
Who was the man who scored the game-winning goal 46 years later?
Jack Hughes.
Jack fucking Hughes. This is unbelievable. What in the Sim shit is this?
I could have swore this was AI. Jack Hughes was cut from the 1980 Olympic hockey team just moments before the Olympics.
They didn't cut Jack Hughes. They delayed Jack Hughes.
This all started with Jack Hughes and it ended with Jack Hughes.
Jack Hughes walked so Jack Hughes could run. If this doesn't give you full-body chills, I don't know what will.
Jack Hughes, born 1957, Somerville, Mass, played hockey at Harvard, came this close to winning gold. Jack Hughes, born in 2001, Olympic hero, gold medal winner.
Right out of Back to the Future.
It's unbelievable.
This
Those guys are great, by the way. I mean, honestly.
This is the most amazing story you've ever heard, and you've never heard it before.
That is a cool story, though. You got to give him that. And boy, his voice is perfect for that kind of thing. It really is.
Yep, it is.
But it's kind of fun, I suppose, to see him too. So whatever. All right, John, we're going to jump into a little bit of sports. I do not have hockey on my schedule today.
All right, we've
So
had
we're
enough
gonna-
hockey. for
We're gonna bounce over to a little football. And so, you know what's coming up Thursday? One of the great weekends of the entire year. And why do I say that? Because it's the combine. And
Yeah.
it's a time where it's so cool because the guys all get flown in there. And here's what it is: D linemen, linebackers, kickers Thursday. You got D-backs and tight ends Friday. Quarterbacks, receivers, running backs Saturday. Sunday, offensive line. Let's see the big boys get out there and pump the 2 1/4 and all the other stuff and run the 40s and stuff. Although I've never really understood, I understand a D lineman. Hey, what's your 40 time? But an offensive lineman, I'm not really sure we worry all that much about the 40 time of those guys. It's cool to watch them. They're 300 plus pounds and they're running something like a 4.8 40 or better, maybe even than that. And it is pretty damn amazing. But I thought I'd throw out a couple of freaks for you, John, that you could kind of mull over a little bit. So Mississippi State has a receiver, Brennan Thompson. He's the guy that most people think might be the fastest guy in the building down there in Indianapolis. He's definitely a 4.3 or sub 4.3 guy, and they're talking more closer to 4.2, but we'll see how that all works out. But he can motor. And I think the interesting thing is we have a really deep, good class of cornerbacks out there too, John. One of the guys, I pulled this guy out from Florida. He's got size, speed. Devin Moore, 6'3", who has Olympic type speed. You tell you what, that's a big part of what you'd like to see in a corner, right? If you're in the draft and you need somebody to cover guys like JJ and some of these other guys that are unbelievable, you need that. But the guy that stood out for me that is a freak show, Jack Kelly, is a linebacker for BYU. Now, he weighs 245 pounds. And presently, John, he's been running very close, if not always, at 4.4. So if this guy's running a 4.4 40 at 245 pounds, I hope like heck he can play, because if he can play, he's going to be an absolute dog out there, I think, for whatever team grabs him, because you need that size. And the problem with a lot of these teams, and I put the Vikings in this category, they're too small because they've got to have the speed to be able to get to where they need to get to, but they don't have the size to be able to stop the running game. So when you've got a 6'1", 220-pound linebacker, I don't think it's big enough. And quite frankly, they're a little faster. They're not that much faster. I'd like to get, if I was one of these guys, a GM of somebody, I would be saying, hey, we need to take a look at this guy's film and make sure, can he play? Because if he can play, I want a guy like that. The last one is that I got for you is a fun kid from Oklahoma. He's a tight end. He's been a linebacker in the past. They moved him to tight end, and his name is Karen Kanik. I'll tell you what, size, speed, athletic, everything you could ever want. I mean, this is one of those guys where I don't know that anybody is a can't miss, because a lot of guys who are great have missed. But there are some freak shows. And by the way, John, I always like to screw around with some of my buddies in the world of basketball and stuff because, like when LeBron tried to say that Christmas time, that's their time to rule the world or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, if you guys actually had ratings, maybe, but you don't. So, you can't say that. But how about this? 5 million viewers is what they had last year for the Combine. Average viewership was 251,000. And then they would just keep on going through this whole thing from Thursday on, and they would take it hourly and everything else. I'll tell you what, it's an amazing number that want to watch those combines, and there are so many freak show athletes, you can totally understand it. But what do you think about that whole thing? The one thing that stands out is it's great if you're fast, but if you can't catch, and you played with a guy like that. But anyway, if you got a guy who's got speed, but he can't catch the ball, well, then he's really not all that effective. So you've got to have the talent, but you also have to have the football playing ability too. And so far, I think that this group of guys is pretty good, but I think that there's some freaks that are going to be out there that they're going to go up like this because of their numbers. But you know what? How about the film? Why didn't the film show up, right? I mean, so I think that's part of the difficulty of trying to figure out, okay, who do we take, who do we not? And they get enamored sometimes by numbers. But what do you think about that whole thing? Because you got to be a football player first, right?
Yeah, it matters what you did on the field more than what you do at the Combine. But what you do at the Combine will get you noticed if they don't already know who you are. Now, the guy that I think is the freak tight end this year, Pete, is this kid, Eli Stowers, at Vanderbilt. Now, he had a Heisman candidate quarterback throwing him the rock. That was good. Got it like 62 or 65 times, something like that, catches. That's good. It depends. If he astounds people with some great vertical and or speed. Speed is good. It's probably sub 4.6, but that's not going to get you noticed.
Right.
He's got to be moving faster than that to get noticed. So he either needs explosive jumps or he needs something in the catching area, Pete, like when the quarterbacks are throwing deep patterns or something.
Yeah.
But the total freak show is Caden Proctor. And Pete knows what I'm talking about because, Pete, isn't this the guy that carried the ball over at Alabama on short yardage?
Yeah.
Okay. So why did they let him carry, folks? Is he just a fridge? Is he just, 6'1", 310 pounds like the fridge was? No, he's 6'7", 360 pounds. And he did an 815-pound squat. So this guy is a freak show.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, Pete, pretty natty, meaning I think most of this, if not all of it, is just how this kid was born.
Yeah.
He might have worked very hard, but it doesn't appear to be a steroid-induced size. He is a big man. And if he can convert anything at the Combine into even more eyeballs on him, he might be one of the top 3 or 4 players picked, Pete, in the whole draft. I mean, you can't tell me if somehow Tom Brady was able to get a pick after Fernando that he wouldn't go after this guy. You bet he would.
Yeah, that guy's a monster, man. He's big, but he's also, like you just pointed out, I mean, he's got the athleticism. I mean, the coach is not going to give him the ball if he's just a full-on lumber, right? I mean, this guy actually can get up and run. And how'd you like to be the linebacker on the other side, coming up to try to tackle that guy? That would be one of those where you almost purposely put yourself into a different position and move away from where he's coming. Oh, man. How about this? Last one I got for you is the free agency. So we talked about combine. Now we got to talk a little bit about free agency. I got one guy for today.
All right.
Aaron Rodgers. People here in Minnesota and around the globe are talking about where should he go. Well, does he come to Minnesota Vikings? Maybe. But I'll tell you what, John, if he comes to Minnesota Vikings, if I'm him, first of all, he had a much better offensive line at Pittsburgh. He probably had equal tight ends because they had some damn good tight ends. He probably had pretty close to equal wide receivers. And let's also remember, Aaron is not the Aaron he was that people remember because he got beat up with the Jets for 2 years. Last year, he didn't get as beat up, but they gave up, I think, 29 sacks or something like that. The Vikings gave up 60. So if he gets here to Minnesota, if they decide to go for Aaron, which sort of like deja vu because we took Brett Favre back here in Minnesota not too many years ago too. So you know what? The guy leaves, he leaves Green Bay, and the Vikings want him. But I'll tell you, I'd kind of like to see Aaron here to see what he could do. But John, when you look at his numbers over the last year, 2 years or whatever, they've gone dramatically lower than they once were. I mean, he was always a top 5, whatever, and sometimes number 1 quarterback. But as of, the last couple of years, he's slipped. He's more somewhere towards the middle and maybe lower middle in a lot of categories that you look at. So I don't know. But the one thing I would say is if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I would say, yeah, I'll sign if you promise me you're going to give me an offensive line because the Vikings still don't have it.
Yeah. Short and sweet. He'd be nuts to go to the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't know if he stays with the Steelers or not, Pete, or if he retires. But in my mind, those are his 2 choices, retire or stay with the Steelers. For him to get into a whole new program again for the 3rd time in 4 years, I don't think that makes much sense.
Yeah.
So, and like you say, the skills, just like any of us, Father Time ain't friendly. And he's especially not friendly when you've had the kind of injuries that Aaron's had recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't want to be lining up with the Vikings. And if you're the Vikings, do you really want to put JJ to the back of the pack again if he's not hurt? I mean, a year ago he was hurt. This year he was hurt, not hurt, hurt, not hurt, not hurt, but still listed as hurt just because they didn't want him getting clocked back there again. So they'd put, we're not going to put him back there. I think you'd really set back the growth of that guy if you indeed brought in a starter ahead of him.
Yeah. They need offensive linemen no matter who's quarterback back there because they damn near killed a couple of the guys that filled in last year. So I think that they need to be smarter, and I agree with you. I don't know, Aaron, maybe, but if he signed with the Vikings, okay, well, that gives people a little something, right? I mean, I guess excitement or whatever. But to your point, I actually think that Pittsburgh's got a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. They just couldn't get it over the line. But I think that they're not that far away. So if I were him, I think I might even stay there if I'm not going to retire.
Right. I'm right there with you. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. Rebels Edge and or USA Hockey, USA. And don't forget, you can always sign up for 3 at 3, where we give you 3 picks every day for our subscribers only. And we hope you join us tomorrow for the Rebels Edge. Can't remember if we had to move it because of the State of the Union. Pete, what time is it tomorrow?
I think we're okay with the State of the Union. So it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time.
See you tomorrow at 1. Bang.